Hey, what is up? AJ here from Theology in Metal. At least as of right now, I just recorded a video asking you whether or not I was gonna, if you thought I should change the channel name or keep it the same. But regardless of that, Theology in Metal or CMB or something else, if someone comes up with something really cool. I mentioned in the last video that I wanted to just start doing things to help Christians and specifically kind of Christian metal artists up and coming deepen their faith and their theology. Sorry, I'm drinking coffee. So, I had the idea of sharing some podcasts and shows that I listen to on Spotify every day at work. Well, not every day, but pretty close. That have helped my understanding of the Bible, my understanding of faith, of Christianity, of theology. It's just helped deepen my understanding of it and sort of help. Just the thing is, a lot of these podcasts come from like guys with different traditions, like Lutheran or Catholic or whatever, and it just helps you kind of see a broader perspective of Christianity, which also helps deepen understanding. So that also helps. We got to consider the different views and things. Not change our worldview. We still want to work from our worldview. Like, our worldview is our foundation, right? That's what we stand upon. And for a lot of Christians, that might just be kind of the tradition they were raised in, But ultimately, I think it should be the Bible, of which we base our worldview on. But I'm going to share some podcasts, and some of the podcasts I'm going to share, they're part of this like whole podcast network. They're called 1517 podcasts. They have tons of different things, different topics. Really, guys, there's so many resources out there to help deepen your theology and your faith. And there's really no excuse for a shallow faith nowadays. There is so much, and yet, in a sense, we die for a lack of knowledge. We see these Christians, we see these bands, leaving the faith and stuff out of a lack of knowledge. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So first one I'm going to share, I literally just have my podcasts open that I follow. And I follow a ton different things. Podcasts are just great. If you want to learn something, just look up a podcast on that topic, and there's going to be like a bunch usually. If there's not, maybe you could start one. But the first one is A Field Guide to the Bible, which is a podcast series. They don't upload anymore, so sort of like a series they uploaded of different episodes, just kind of going through the overall story of the Bible. Like, it starts with God, Adam and Eve, then Noah, Abraham, and ends with Revelation, the last days. It's really good. I haven't even listened through all of them. I kind of skipped ahead and was listening to things more in the New Testament. But I'm definitely going to go back and listen through the rest. And it's just really great. It's, like it says, a field guide to the Bible. It's really helpful. So I'll link all these podcasts in the description. The next one is, by the way, that was one of the podcast networks I mentioned. There's, a few of them. 1517 podcasts. They have podcasts, they have books, they have blogs, they have all sorts of stuff. Just look up, like, Google 1517 podcasts to take you to their website. They have all sorts of resources. Next one is 30 Minutes in the New Testament. Sort of like a, what's the word? Like a sort of like a systematic journey through the New Testament from start to finish. What they kind of do is they go through like one of the Gospels, and they'll skip ahead and go through maybe one or two of the other books, and then go back to one of the Gospels. And I'm not sure where they're at now. They might. I don't know if they're all the way through, but they might be. I don't know. But really great stuff and very in depth. And it's only 30 minutes. You could listen like 30 minutes a day or once a week, even. It's very deep stuff, but it's very simplified and it's just portrayed in a very easy to understand way. So yeah, if there's like a book you're wanting to look at, like here I can go here. I was doing sort of a study through Romans, so I skipped ahead to Romans. Oh, you can't see my phone. You probably can't read that anyways, but you can skip ahead to a book you're studying through, like Romans or something, or just go through it systematically. Like I started doing that for a while, but there are so many guys because they go so in depth on, every chapter, every verse, everything. It's so good, seriously. Now, go to a different podcast. This one is called Hebrew Bible Insights. And this is helpful because what you got to understand is the Bible wasn't written in English. It was written in Hebrew. Yes, it's been pretty accurate, as it's been translated several times, but there still can be mistranslations because of how nuanced and detailed the Hebrew language is. We can miss things easily, we can misunderstand things. Even though it's been translated well, still the way that we read things, sometimes it's just in this age we do just define things differently and see things differently. So we got to kind of go back to the past and study things and how they viewed things and how they read things, how they wrote things like that. There's so many things. The Bible is a much deeper book than we realize, There's so much to it. And this guy, he knows Hebrew, and he kind of explains, some, what I like about him is he kind of, like, right off the bat attacks, mistranslated and misunderstood ideas in theology, and things that have caused a lot of pain for people, things that have caused even slaughter and murder in the past and history, A lot of errors are addressed in this podcast, and a lot of my confusion was dealt with, and things regarding to, sort of like this idea of how the home was structured, that's one thing I've struggled with. Not how the home was structured, but how we viewed it, as man, the head of the home and everything, and then woman and, everything like that. But no, it was supposed to be equal, first of all. And second of all, and I think that might not be as misunderstood, but it's just very much like, I just still see it a lot that guys are very domineering over their wives, not in a biblical sense, When you look back at Genesis, it says part of the curse was men ruling over women. Part of the curse was a man, like Adam, ruling over Eve, rather than working together, So, I might be ticking some people off already, but guess what? You want to have a deeper theology, you got to question the things you know, and examine, Have you even asked the question, is this a right way of viewing things? Because people say, well, just do what the Bible says. Okay, well, we can easily misunderstand what that says, Each person reads their own opinion into what the Bible says. So how do you know which way is accurate? You look back to the original context, to the original language. What does the original language say? Go and take a look for yourself. So, there's that. This is one that's just like sort of helpful, and the guy who did this does this. I don't know if he's still doing it. He did this as like a series for kids to listen to, but I listened through it, and I found it really helpful. It's called Studies in Proverbs by Paul Washer. He's a great pastor that I like listening to. But it's really great, and he's like I said, he's kind of trying to address a younger audience. Maybe that might be youth sort of audience. But just trying to sort of instill the idea of the pursuit of wisdom, like what Proverbs talks about, and skillful living well, that sort of thing. It's a really great series. And Proverbs is pretty straightforward. If there's any book you could quote like one verse and still sort of have in its context, it's Proverbs. If there's like one book that's quotable, you know what I mean? Because other books, people pull quotes and stuff out of them, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool, but you're completely pulling it out of its context and out of its deeper meaning. So, but Proverbs is one of those you can definitely do with, because they're all very bite-sized and very much, they're designed to meditate and chew on, Going through these, I listen to a bunch of lore casts. I'm a nerd. Let's see. I follow so many. Okay. Here's a great one actually that I didn't even think of. This isn't as much focused on theology as it is more on living better, dealing with struggles, specifically struggles with pornography. It's called the Covenant Eyes podcast. I just found like a lot of really helpful insight into dealing with the struggles that let's all just admit it, all of us guys likely deal with. And it's been very helpful listening to. A lot of great insights. They bring on different people who, there was this one guy who talks about the theology of the body, and it's just really interesting. It's really great, really helpful. That's not even one I was really planning on sharing, but I kind of haven't listened to for a while. I forgot about it. Let's see. And really, if you want to study any book, you could probably just look up like studies in this book or that book, and you'll find all sorts of results. Trying to get something more. Okay, so the 1517 podcast network, like some of these I follow, I haven't even listened to yet. There's this one called The Craft. Maybe I go and read its description. Because I've listened to a couple of these, they're really good. The Craft is where we explore various vocations through the lens of artistry, theology, and culture. Each week, we invite guests to sit down with us to discuss their craft as we explore the how and why of what they create. So it's sort of talking about, different crafts, things you do, art, things like that, songwriting, things like that, and the connection of that and theology. And it's really good. The episodes I listen to, it looks like they have songwriters, authors, and speakers, musicians, podcast producers, filmmakers, all sorts of like, it's really cool. Now, dude, like they have so many. Just look up 1517 podcasts like on Spotify. You will get a plethora. Like all of these. Look. Okay, see? From the top, I'm still scrolling, and those are all some of their podcasts. And I haven't even listened to all of them yet. But all of them are like, there's this one I've listened to quite a bit. Called Banned Books, where they're sort of going back to historical books that were written and stuff like that, and that were kind of like by people who were sort of shunned by the church in some sense or another. I think Athanasius is one of them. They have C.S. Lewis on. Oh wait, they go through C.S. Lewis's Introduction to Athanasius. If you don't know who that is, it's actually pretty interesting. Um, like historical theologians. I find one of my most favorite things to read is works by different theologians. Throughout history. Like I have one of Martin Luther's. What's the word? I can't think of it. His sermons based on Galatians, or his, I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. His commentary of Galatians. It's really good. But I find that's like some of my most favorite stuff to read, because it gives you a different perspective than what the modern perspective on those things, on the books of the Bible and stuff, and how the older historical members of the church saw these things. Thinking Fellows is another good one by 1517. They actually go through systematic theology, and topics of it, like predestination, good works, baptism, confession, and absolution. Like I don't even know what some of these terms mean, but they're really good. And it's just like several of these theologians that are like professors at colleges and stuff teaching theology, just sitting and discussing these topics basically. So it's really good. The next one, this is also by 1517 podcast. This is my favorite one by them, because the Old Testament is so hard to understand. 40 minutes in the Old Testament. So there's a 30 minutes in the New Testament, 40 minutes in the Old Testament. So at some point, they're going to have podcasts covering all of the Old Testament and New Testament, and it's going to be sick. And I started listening through 40 minutes in the Old Testament. It was literally like, they have hundreds of episodes, and they're not even maybe halfway through the Old Testament. So you want super in-depth stuff, check it out. Next one is Bible Project Podcast. Some of you might know Bible Project on YouTube. They do short videos with artwork and stuff explaining biblical things. But they have a podcast where it's like, it's almost like their YouTube videos are like the very, very cut down, trimmed version of their podcast. Their podcast is like sometimes hours, sometimes 30 minutes, averaging kind of between those. So it's just really in-depth stuff, like a lot of biblical topics, spiritual warfare, origin of spiritual beings, the Nephilim, Satan and demons, experiencing God through humans. A lot of cool topics and interesting things to listen to. Really, there's no excuse not to at least have some deeper knowledge of faith than some of these guys who really don't have any concept of theology, or deeper theology anyways, and are uprooted very easily by very, they're issues, and they're hard to understand. Like the obvious one that theologians have been discussing for centuries, and the problem of evil, of suffering and things like that. And how could a good God allow people to suffer and die? I've dealt with that, dealt with loss, dealt with a lot of suffering, and it's not an easy thing to answer, because everyone's life is different, and you don't know what someone's gone through, and you don't want to overlook what they've gone through. But all I can really say is, I would have no character. I would not be the person I am today. I would probably be in my parents' basement still if I didn't have some sort of suffering thrust upon me that forced me to get better, to be a better person, to grow. It's like this idea of an eagle. A bald eagle will push its babies out of the nest if they don't jump out. That sounds horrible, right? How could a mom eagle do that? Similar thing. How could God do that? How could God let that happen? Um, you know, uh, but here's the thing. If the mom doesn't push the eagle out, it's never going to learn how to fly, you know? And that might be a strange comparison, but that's what came to mind, And it's just this idea of being pushed. We just sometimes circumstances get bad because we need to get better. What is going to help you deal with bad circumstances, because they're just a part of life. Suffering is just a part of life. It may not have been originally, but it is now. And what's going to help you live regardless of that? You being made stronger, more fortified, And you don't get there by just sitting in the nest, right? So, yeah, there's a little bit of my thoughts on that. That was totally just off the cuff. So, there's also another good one that offers decent insight. It's not as in depth as the 40 minutes in the Old Testament and the 30 minutes in the New Testament, but it's still helpful to kind of give you like a general overlook. That's Through the Word, where they do like short episodes, explaining different, going through and explaining books. Usually they're not super long episodes. Like most of these I'm looking at are like 8 minutes. So if you want something a little more simplified, but help give you a more what's the word I want to say? Like just like a better general understanding of everything, of the Bible, then that'll help. As a musician and a business owner, I found this podcast helpful at times. It's called Theology of Business. And part of me has always kind of struggled with balancing faith and work. And for most of my life, I may not have been intentionally taught this, but this was my view that I got, was that they're separated, our work and our faith, ministry and business. But they're not. They shouldn't be, at least. And they should be intertwined. Even your day job, whatever, that's ministry. The way you're acting, the way you're living, the way you're responding to situations, that's ministering. It's not just speaking to people, witnessing to people about the gospel and everything. Sometimes the best witness is not saying anything. It's just how you live. It's not saying I'm a Christian. It's just being a Christian. And, people I think it's better for people to discover that you're a Christian that way rather than you saying it, because everybody says I'm a Christian nowadays. And then we see this sort of thing happening where they're like, no, I hate God, I hate everything. Bleh. Like, living out what you believe, I think, is better than saying you believe something, because it's already proving that's what you are. It's not hiding what you are. It's completely and totally belonging to who you are, If people ask, I'm not going to hide it, But I don't think it's something we just go around saying. It's more than just a title. It's a lifestyle. That's what I believe. Because nowadays, it's all it is a title. This one isn't. Oh well, I won't mention that one. But I think that's probably about the gist of like what I wanted to do. So I don't even know how many podcasts I mentioned. But there's even from the ones I mentioned, which this video is going long, it's almost 30 minutes. Even after those ones I've mentioned, there's still so many. There's so many out there. I mean, yeah, you gotta sort of discern because there can be a lot of fluff out there, right? There can be a lot of, you know, not good stuff. People teaching you wrong things. So you got to have the mindset of questioning things, you know. The other one I forgot to mention is, you know, I don't know if they have a podcast on Spotify or whatever, but you can get this app. It's called Reasonable Faith, I think, or it's called the RF app. Yeah, just look up RF app. You should see it. Reasonable Faith, but they have podcasts, what they call Defenders, and it's like a whole series that they go through, and it is massive. And see, well, you probably can't see it very well there, but they have season 1, Foundations. No, that's not just an episode. You click on that, there's several episodes. Go back. Stupid phone. Season 2, Doctrine of Revelation. Oh, a bunch of episodes there. Season 3, Doctrine of God. Going through all these different doctrines and stuff of the faith, you know, giving a very good, deep sort of, you know, it's very in-depth, and it's totally free. And you look up things like, hang on. Let's see. Shoot, where is it? Okay. The Blue Letter Bible app. It's a Bible app. But if you like look up like Blue Letter Bible online on the website, they have tons of free courses, like very in-depth free courses. You know, like theology level, like free courses, like what they would teach pastors and stuff. So you could like, seriously, there's so many things you can do to deepen your faith, deepen your knowledge and understanding. Sorry, my camera's going blurry because I don't know why. What's going on? It might be my light in the background. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hopefully that helped. Sorry about that. There's that, and the one I mentioned, Bible Project. If you go to their website, they have free courses. If you go to 1517, it might just be 1517.com. I don't know, but look up 1517 Podcast Network or whatever. They'll show the podcast, but they'll probably have their website somewhere, and they have a bunch of free courses too. These guys are like, they're college professors teaching theology, okay? And this is free. So go and listen to those. You have no excuse not to go and deepen your understanding, deepen your knowledge, deepen your faith, deepen your theology. Go do that. Seriously. If you're going to stand with that name, with the title Christian artist, belong to it. You know what I mean? And be, you know, Christian. Be a Christian. What does it mean to be a Christian? Maybe I'll cover that in another video. But to be a Christian, what it means is follow Christ. And this is a lifelong pursuit of seeking Him through His Word, through prayer, through, you know, just learning more about His Word, through other resources and stuff like that. Like I say, it wasn't written in English. It was written in Hebrew. There's so much more than the surface of these words, you know. Obviously, the words speak for themselves, and that's all it takes sometimes to really awaken you, in a sense, you know. But if you want to go deeper, you want to go in depth and understand these things on a deeper level, things like why do people suffer, things like why is there evil, why is there suffering, why is there pain, things like that. They've obviously been debated and discussed for years, but there are a lot of helpful things to help with that, you know. So no excuses. Go and grow. Thanks for joining me.